But perhaps the greatest drawcard to Egypt is the fascination that ancient Egyptians had about living forever. Their culture and religion were based on it, and most of their energies were consumed preparing for it. The science of archaeology has recovered the history and culture of ancient peoples and their search for the afterlife. Egypt is one of the oldest civilizations in the world. In surveying this country's long history, one gains a new concept of time. Their search for immortality led to the construction of the world's largest pyramids and temples. Modern Egyptians have not lost their longing for the spiritual. Like their ancestors, their search for immortality continues. Most of the world's religions can be found in Egypt today. In fact, Cairo is the center of Islam in northern Africa, and its medieval district has some of the finest Islamic architecture in the world. But can the Egyptians' millennia-long obsession with immortality help prepare us for death and the afterlife? Is it possible that their quest might also tell us something about how we can live life to the full, right here and now, on the threshold of a new millennium?
For the ancients, the afterlife was as much a spiritual journey as their day-to-day worship of their king and gods. And in a strange way, they did discover something about immortality.
In an effort to preserve the body for life after death, the Egyptians developed a procedure known as mummification. Upon death, the body was covered with tar, wrapped in hundreds of meters of linen interspersed with oils and spices, and placed in a wooden coffin inscribed with prayers and magical incantations to guarantee safe arrival to the world of the dead. The Egyptians believed that this life was a preparation for the world to come.
It's hard to believe, but for 500 years, this was the proud capital of Egypt. Memphis was founded by Namu, the first king of the first dynasty of Egypt. Today, Memphis is an open museum, with monuments brought here from their original positions. Only a few relics have survived, like this colossal statue of Ramses II.
The kings of Memphis were buried a few kilometres away at Saqqara. The earliest form of royal grave was an underground chamber at the bottom of a shaft. It was covered by a brick or stone structure called a mastaba. Zoser, the first king of the third dynasty, decided to put a series of mastabas on top of one another, an early attempt to assure his departure from this world into an immortal future.
The result was the world's first pyramid. It was a stepped structure built in 6 stages and standing 63 metres high.
Of all the pyramids in Egypt, the ones at Giza inspire the greatest awe. Built by the kings Khufu, Khafre and Menkaure of the 4th dynasty, they are among the most impressive structures ever built. According to an ancient Egyptian proverb, everything fears time, but time fears the pyramids. They are the only one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world that still remain. Khufu built the Great Pyramid to be his eternal home. It's a concept that was of paramount importance to the ancient Egyptians. For the king's quest for immortality reflected the whole nation's desire for never-ending life. His eternal happiness was their guarantee of prosperity in this life and the next.
The grand hope of immortality is mirrored in the incredible size of the Great Pyramid. It stands 42 stories high and covers an area of 10 football fields.
It's hard to imagine just how much stone is actually here. There's about 2.5 million blocks, each weighing around 2.5 tonnes, though some weigh up to 15 tonnes. No 2 sides are identical in length, but the difference between the longest and shortest sides is only 20 centimetres. Amazingly, each side faces exactly north, south, east and west.
When the pyramids were first built, the rough stones that can be seen today were covered with gleaming white limestone. They certainly would have been a very impressive sight. Unfortunately, they've been removed over the centuries to build homes, bridges and other buildings around the city of Cairo. The apex of the Great Pyramid is missing, so it's 10 metres lower than its original size. But the question is often raised, how long did it take to build these massive monuments?
The Greek historian Herodotus claimed that 100,000 men, working for 3 months each year, took 30 years to build the pyramid. Interestingly enough, generally the pharaohs didn't even live that long. Today there is evidence to suggest that the pyramids were built within a much shorter time frame.
It's very important for people to understand that the pyramid was a national project of Egypt. And everyone, the 1 million people, the population in Egypt in that time, had to participate in building the pyramid. Some to cut the stones, some to move the stones, some to send the food, because of the national project. The Great Pyramid was built for about 23 years. All the stones for the pyramid were taken from the plateau, except the white fine limestone. They brought it from a place called Tora.